You took my brother from me, and you've cursed my family for generations. But now, I am here, not to beg for forgiveness, but to end it all. Whether you're a god or a monster, I will not back down."
This journey is not just about courage. It's about uncovering the truth the ocean has never revealed. Are you ready to embark on this discovery with them? Step into the deep waters, where every question will be answered, or forever lost to the tides. At a small coastal town in California, where gentle sunlight embraced the calm ocean waves and seagulls called to one another in the sky, Elijah's life was always tied to the sea. Elijah was a young fisherman carrying an endless passion for the ocean. Early in the mornings, he would often row his boat alone, far out to where the sea and sky seemed to merge, feeling the salty breeze and watching the sunlight dance on the water's surface. To Elijah, the sea was home, a place where he found peace and the desire to uncover the secrets hidden in its depths. But on one fateful Christmas Eve, that peace was shattered forever. The storm came without warning. The sky turned a grim grey, and the wind howled through the narrow alleys of the town, carrying with it icy rain. Malik, Elijah's older brother, decided to venture out to sea despite the storm brewing. Malik was a strong and brave man who always believed that no wave was too big for him to conquer. "It's just a strong gust of wind, Elijah," he said confidently as he stood on the deck of his boat. "I'll be back before you even miss me." Elijah said nothing. He stood on the dock, watching his brother's figure fade into the rising waves. A feeling of unease swept over him, but he dismissed it. "Malik always knows what he's doing," he told himself, not realizing that it would be the last time he'd see his brother. When the light of dawn broke the next day, Malik had not returned. His boat was nowhere to be found. Villagers gathered one by one along the shore, gazing toward the distant horizon. The cold Christmas morning weighed heavily on their shoulders. Some began to whisper, recounting old tales they'd heard as children. Stories of a mythical being called the Sea Queen. "She took your brother," an old fisherman whispered to Elijah, his eyes clouded with fear. "She's no ordinary being but an ancient creature ruling the seas with unmatched power. If she sets her sights on someone, they'll never return." The tales left Elijah frozen in place. The Sea Queen, the being he had always thought was just a legend meant to frighten children, was now tied to the loss of his brother. Elijah couldn't bear it. His heart, already shattered by grief, now burned with anger and a thirst for revenge. "If she truly is the cause," Elijah vowed, "I won't let her go unpunished." That night, under the faint light of a rising moon, Elijah stood on the beach. The sky was pitch black, with only the dim glow of lanterns from the distant town. In his hand, he gripped a spear forged from iron, once used by Malik to hunt swordfish. Memories of his brother flooded his mind, the two of them laughing on the boat, afternoons spent casting nets together, and Malik's warm, steady voice telling stories about the ocean. "I will avenge you, Malik," Elijah whispered, his voice trembling with rage. His eyes locked onto the ocean where the waves seemed to mock his helplessness. "Whoever she is, whatever she is, I will find her and make her pay for the pain she's caused." The cold wind cut through him, but Elijah didn't move. In that moment, he felt an unusual strength within him, a determination and an unyielding resolve. Elijah swore that even if it took him to the ends of the earth, he wouldn't stop until he confronted the Sea Queen. In the nights that followed, Elijah began to have strange dreams. In the first dream, he stood on a desolate beach where no signs of life existed. Before him, violent waves crashed ashore, but instead of fear, Elijah felt an irresistible pull. In the second dream, he saw a shadowy figure, a woman with long black hair and eyes that shone like stars, standing in the middle of the ocean, beckoning him. "Come here," her voice echoed from the depths. "If you dare." When Elijah awoke, he felt an urgent need to act. He began researching every story he could find about the Sea Queen, from old legends shared by villagers to rumors heard from far-traveling fishermen. Elijah meticulously prepared for his journey. He reforged the spear Malik once used, sharpening its tips. He gathered supplies and provisions for several days and carried an old compass, the only tool he trusted to guide him. Before setting off, he visited his mother's grave, where he prayed silently. Placing his hand on the cold stone, he closed his eyes and said, "I won't come back until I find the answers. I promise you and Malik." Elijah set sail one early morning as the sun rose over the horizon. The ocean was eerily calm, as if it was hiding something. For days, Elijah roamed the seas, braving cold waters and strong waves, but the farther he went, the more he felt as though he was being watched. Time and again he turned to see shadows darting beneath the waves and heard strange whispers rising from the depths, like warnings. Then, one night, as the moon hung high in the sky, Elijah heard laughter. Not human laughter, but a sound that reverberated, filled with mockery. Gripping his spear tightly, he stood on the boat's deck and scanned his surroundings. Suddenly, from the depths of the ocean, a massive wave surged upward, and from the darkness emerged the figure of the Sea Queen. The Sea Queen was unlike anything Elijah had imagined. She had a dangerous beauty, with flowing black hair and eyes that burned like fire. She stared directly at Elijah, her voice thunderous. "Do you think you can face me, weakling?" Elijah didn't answer. He gripped his spear tightly, feeling fear course through him but refusing to let it control him. "I've come to demand justice for Malik," he said firmly. "You will pay for what you've done." The Sea Queen let out a soft, chilling laugh, one filled with defiance. "Prove yourself worthy," she said, before disappearing beneath the waves, leaving Elijah with the question, how does one fight against a being so powerful? Elijah decided to leave his small coastal town, carrying a heavy heart and a burning desire to seek the truth. He knew that to confront the Sea Queen, the mythical being who haunted the ocean and had taken his beloved brother, he needed to find someone who could help him understand the secrets of the sea. Rumors about Amara, an old healer living in seclusion at an ancient house by the Maryland shoreline, began to fill his mind. "She's the only one who knows the old stories of the ocean," an elderly fisherman told Elijah, as he prepared his belongings. "If anyone can help you, it's her." With a faint glimmer of hope, Elijah embarked on his journey. The road to Maryland was blanketed in white snow, and the cold winter air felt as though it could freeze him to his very core. But his determination urged him forward, despite the biting chill and the solitude. When Elijah finally reached Amara's home, he felt as though he had stepped into another world. The small weathered house sat tucked away by the shore, surrounded by swaying reeds, bent low by the sea wind. A weathered wooden fence encircled the home, and faint light streaming from its windows created a sense of both warmth and mystery. Elijah hesitated before knocking on the door. The creak of hinges sounded as the door opened, and he found himself face to face with an older woman whose sharp eyes seemed to pierce into his very soul. Amara was nothing like he had imagined. Her petite frame contrasted completely with the commanding energy she exuded. "You've come seeking answers, haven't you?" Amara asked, as though she already knew why he was there. Without waiting for Elijah's response, she turned and gestured for him to follow her inside. Amara's home was a treasure trove of the arcane. Tall bookshelves reached the ceiling, crammed with old leather-bound volumes. A long wooden table sat at the center of the room, covered with ancient maps and illustrations of sea creatures Elijah had never seen before. Glass jars filled with various herbs were neatly arranged on shelves, blending their scents with the subtle aroma of pine and sea salt. After pouring Elijah a warm cup of herbal tea, Amara began to tell her story. "The sea is not your enemy," she said, her voice deep and reassuring. "It is merely a witness to events that unfolded centuries ago." Amara recounted the tale of the Sea Queen, a mystical being who once ruled the ocean and was revered by fishermen as a divine protector. "She was once a symbol of life and prosperity," Amara explained. "Fishing villages along the coast owed their bountiful harvests and safety from storms to her blessings. But everything changed when someone close to the Sea Queen, someone she trusted deeply, betrayed her." That person sought to claim her power, intending to use the ocean as a tool for their own ambition. In her grief and fury, the Sea Queen used her immense power to curse the bloodline of the betrayer, marking them with fiery red hair, a trait that could never be erased. Elijah felt a cold shiver run down his spine. He could hardly believe what he was hearing. "So, what does this have to do with me?" he asked, his voice trembling. Amara gazed deeply into Elijah's eyes, her expression softening for the first time. "Your family is descended from that betrayer," she said. "That's why the ocean has never left you in peace. The curse has bound your lineage to a fate of suffering, and Malik, he was part of that price." Elijah felt as though the ground beneath him had crumbled. He recalled how his mother had often spoken of their red hair, calling it a unique gift, a symbol of good fortune. But now he understood that it was no gift. It was the mark of a curse that had plagued his family for generations. "I can't accept this," Elijah said, his voice thick with anger. "Malik didn't deserve to be taken. He was a good man who would never harm anyone." Amara placed a reassuring hand on Elijah's shoulder. "It's not your fault," she said. "But if you want to break this curse, you must face the Sea Queen. And remember, she's not purely evil. She, too, is a victim of this tale." Amara led Elijah to a room at the back of her house, where she kept ancient relics she had gathered over years of study. On a wooden table, she placed a small box. Inside was a dagger inscribed with ancient symbols. "This is the blade of the sea," Amara explained. "Forged from deep-sea stone, it has the power to confront the Sea Queen's magic. But it's not a weapon to kill. It's a tool to break the barrier between you and her. Use it wisely." Elijah accepted the dagger, feeling its weight, both physical and symbolic. He knew the journey ahead would not just be an adventure, but a true test of his courage, intellect, and heart. Before Elijah departed, Amara fixed him with a stern gaze. "Remember, Elijah," she said, "revenge is not the way to end pain. You will have to decide. Do you want destruction, or do you want healing?" Her words echoed in Elijah's mind as he left Amara's house. He felt as though he stood at a crossroads, where every step could lead to either salvation or ruin. But one thing he knew for certain: he would not stop until he uncovered the truth. Elijah left Maryland, carrying the blade and Amara's teachings, heading toward the ocean where the Sea Queen awaited. He understood that this journey would not just be a battle with a mythical being, but also a confrontation with his own fears and anger. He was embarking on a quest not only for vengeance, but for redemption, for himself, and for his family. In Elijah's heart, a small flame of hope began to flicker, faint but strong enough to light the path ahead. His journey was just beginning, and the ocean, with all its secrets and power, awaited his discovery. Elijah's journey led him to a small coastal town in Texas, where the sky was always a deep blue, and the waves whispered gently as they lapped against the sandy shore. There he met Nia, a young woman with fiery red hair, a striking and unusual trait that reminded him of the curse he'd heard about from the Sea Queen. Nia's family, the Kamisi lineage, had lived by the sea for generations. They were reclusive, rarely mingling with outsiders, but were known for their profound understanding of the ocean. From the moment Elijah first saw Nia, he was captivated by her powerful presence. Nia wasn't just beautiful. She carried a self-assuredness that made it seem like she knew more than anyone else. They met for the first time at a small beach gathering, where locals had come together to enjoy the sunset and share old stories. Elijah couldn't take his eyes off Nia, and as he approached to introduce himself, she looked at him with eyes that sparkled like the sea. "You're new here," she said with a soft smile. "I'm Nia. And you, let me guess, you're searching for answers about the ocean?" Elijah was taken aback. How did she know? He chuckled nervously and replied, "That's right. I'm Elijah. And it seems like you know quite a bit about the sea." Nia tilted her head, her sharp gaze seeming to pierce through him. "The sea always holds secrets that not everyone can understand. But I know one day, you'll see them. As time passed, Elijah and Nia quickly grew close. Each day they explored the coastline together, searching for signs of the mysterious beings Elijah had heard about in the old legends. Nia took him to places no one dared to go: underwater caves, jagged rock formations, and glowing waters that shimmered with an otherworldly blue light. One morning, as they explored a massive rock jutting out into the ocean, Nia paused and pointed to a giant clam lying beneath the water's surface. "That's a sign of the Sea Queen's presence," she said. "My family has lived here for generations, and we've always known that the sea's power doesn't just come from nature. It's part of something much greater." Elijah listened in silence, a mix of curiosity and apprehension stirring within him. He realized that Nia's family had a deep and mysterious connection to the ocean, one that he couldn't yet fully grasp. One night, as they stood on the beach under the moonlight, Nia unexpectedly opened up about her family's past. "My family carries a curse," she said, her voice soft but heavy with emotion. "This red hair of mine isn't just a random trait. It's a symbol of the bond between our lineage and the Sea Queen. She once protected my ancestors, but everything changed." Elijah listened intently as Nia recounted a betrayal that occurred centuries ago. "My ancestors betrayed the Sea Queen," she said, her eyes fixed on the dark waves. "They were greedy, seeking her power to control the ocean, and so she cursed us." Elijah was stunned. "What does that have to do with my brother's death?" he asked, his voice shaking. Nia turned to face him, her eyes filled with sorrow. "Your brother's death wasn't an accident. It was part of the Sea Queen's larger plan. The curse isn't just tied to my family. It has spread, affecting anyone connected to her. Your family, and mine, are both bound to her." Anger welled up inside Elijah, but he also understood that this truth was far bigger than he had ever imagined. He looked at Nia and said, "We can't let this continue. If the Sea Queen wants to drag all of us down to the depths, then I'll face her." Nia nodded, her eyes alight with determination. "You can't do this alone, Elijah. If we want to end this curse, we have to do it together. I believe we can find a way to confront her, not just for our families, but for everyone." Together they vowed not to stop until they found a way to break the curse. Elijah realized he was no longer alone on this journey. He had Nia, a friend, a companion, and perhaps the only person who truly understood the weight of the curse they bore. But their path was not an easy one. Strange signs began to appear. An abandoned boat washed ashore with deep claw marks gouged into its hull. Dreams that both Elijah and Nia shared of the Sea Queen, calling them to the depths, and sudden, unexplainable storms striking without warning. One night, as they returned from exploring an underwater cave, Nia suddenly froze, her eyes wide with fear. "Do you hear that?" she whispered. Elijah stopped, listening to the wind and the crashing waves. For a moment, he heard a faint whisper, like someone calling his name. "Elijah." "Nia." The voice seemed to echo from all around them, sending a chill down his spine. "We need to leave now," Nia said, grabbing Elijah's hand and pulling him along. They felt as though something unseen was watching them, a powerful invisible force from the sea that they couldn't explain. Elijah and Nia knew time was running out. They needed a plan to confront the Sea Queen. Nia suggested they learn more about her power and how to counter the curse. They sought out an old fisherman named Jonas, who had once survived an encounter with the Sea Queen. Jonas told them she couldn't be defeated by force but could be reached through courage and truth. "She's not just a villain," he said. "She was once good, but pain and betrayal turned her into a monster. If you want to break the curse, you need to do what no one has done before. Understand her." Before embarking on their final confrontation, Elijah and Nia stood on the beach once more, under the silver light of the moon. They gazed out at the ocean, where the waves seemed to roil in preparation for a great battle. "If this is the last time I see the sea," Elijah said, his voice trembling, "then I want it to know I fought with everything I had." Nia placed a hand on his shoulder, her eyes shining with determination. "We'll do this, Elijah. Not for revenge, but for freedom. This isn't just about us. It's for everyone affected by this curse." With those words, they boarded their boat, ready to face the Sea Queen in a battle that would decide the fate of their families, their lives, and all those living in the shadow of the curse. Stepping onto the deck of their boat, Elijah and Nia exchanged no words. Their gazes locked on the horizon, where the vast blue oceans stretched endlessly. They knew Georgia was not just a destination. It was a challenge, a place that would decide their fates. Elijah gripped the dagger Amara had given him tightly. Nia stood by his side, her eyes filled with determination. "Elijah," she said, her voice steady, "no matter what happens, we won't back down. The sea isn't just a place of curses. It holds the truth. We must uncover it." The sea breeze grew stronger as their boat sliced through the waves. The rising swells seemed less like obstacles and more like tests of their resolve. As they ventured closer to Georgia, the ocean turned wild. Towering waves crashed against the hull, each impact rocking the boat as if trying to drag it into the depths. "Hold the ropes tight!" Elijah shouted, his voice rising above the howling wind. Without hesitation, Nia gripped the lines and helped him steady the wheel. Rain fell like daggers, stinging their faces, but neither of them faltered. As night fell, they encountered strange creatures in the deep. A massive shark emerged from the dark waters, its glowing eyes fixed on them. It surged toward the boat, jaws gaping wide to reveal rows of teeth as sharp as blades. Together, Elijah and Nia fought back, using harpoons they had prepared. Yet no matter their strength, they realized brute force alone wouldn't save them. "We can't defeat it, but we can outsmart it," Nia yelled, her eyes lighting up with an idea. They maneuvered the boat in tight circles, creating a small whirlpool to disorient the shark. When it lunged into an empty space, they seized the opportunity to escape. One night, an unexpected storm descended upon them, bringing whirlwinds and torrential rain. Their boat was caught in a colossal maelstrom. Elijah gripped the helm tightly, but the storm's power was overwhelming. "Hold on!" Elijah shouted, but before he could act, both he and Nia were thrown overboard. The freezing water rushed into Elijah's lungs, dragging him down. He thrashed against the current, but it was too strong, pulling him farther from Nia. In a moment of desperation, Elijah remembered Amara's words. "The sea isn't your enemy, it's a part of you. Learn to listen to it." Closing his eyes, he let his body relax, allowing the current to carry him. Suddenly, he felt a gentle undercurrent lifting him upward. When Elijah broke through the surface, he saw Nia clinging to a large piece of driftwood. Exhausted but determined, they made their way back to the boat. "We survived," Nia said, her voice hoarse but filled with relief. "Elijah, don't you see? The sea doesn't want to destroy us, it's testing us." When the storm passed, they resumed their journey and eventually arrived near the coast of Georgia. Nia led Elijah to an underwater cave where she believed they would find the answers they sought. The cave was hidden beneath a thick layer of rock, accessible only at low tide. Inside, light from glowing crystals on the walls illuminated the space, casting a surreal glow. The still waters within reflected the light, as though telling a forgotten story. "This is where my ancestors once came," Nia said, her voice low as if afraid to disturb the silence. "Each generation, my family would visit this place to learn how to commune with the sea and understand our connection to the Sea Queen." They ventured deeper into the cave, where a massive stone wall stood, engraved with ancient symbols. Elijah touched one of the carvings, feeling a strange energy coursing through him. Nia began to translate the symbols, each one revealing a harrowing tale. "The Sea Queen was once a protector of the ocean," she read aloud. "She held the power to control the waves and safeguard those who lived by the sea, but her closest friend betrayed her, scheming to use her power to dominate the ocean." Elijah listened, his heart heavy. "Who was this friend?" he asked. Nia paused, her eyes darkening. "It was our ancestors," she said, her voice breaking. "They betrayed her, and for that, the curse has been passed down through every generation, lasting until now." Elijah felt as though a heavy weight had been dropped on him. We're the reason she became a monster, he whispered. But if we're the reason, then we must also be the solution. In the cave, Elijah and Nia discovered an ancient map pointing to the Sea Queen's lair. The map was not just a guide, but a message from the past, reminding them that their greatest strength lay not in weapons, but in courage and determination. Before leaving the cave, Elijah stood silently before the stone wall, his eyes filled with resolve. "We will end this curse," he said, as if making a vow to the ocean itself. "Not just for my family, but for everyone who has suffered because of it." Nia stepped beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "We'll do it, Elijah," she said. "We've made it this far, and we'll see it through to the end." With the map in hand, Elijah and Nia continued their journey. The ocean remained wild, but now they faced it without fear. They knew the greatest challenge was still ahead, but they also knew they weren't alone. The journey to Georgia was not just an adventure across the sea. It was a journey of self-discovery, a confrontation with the past, and a quest for redemption. Elijah and Nia knew that to face the Sea Queen, they needed more than strength. They needed compassion and wisdom, the qualities that could break any curse. And with that, they pressed forward, ready to face whatever lay ahead. Elijah and Nia returned to the shores of California, where it had all begun. The sea breeze blew strong, carrying a chill and an ominous weight, as if heralding the arrival of a fateful battle. They stood on the stretch of white sand, gazing out at the dark, restless ocean roaring like a wounded beast. "This is where my brother was lost," Elijah said, his eyes glimmering with both pain and determination. "And this is where it will all end." Nia gently placed a hand on his shoulder, her voice soft yet resolute. "We've come too far to turn back. Today we're not just facing the Sea Queen, but also our own destiny." They stepped aboard the small boat that had carried them through so many trials, heading into the deep waters where the Sea Queen's underwater palace was said to be hidden. As their boat drew closer, a sudden storm emerged, ferocious and unrelenting, threatening to consume everything in its path. "This is no ordinary storm," Nia shouted over the howling winds. "This is her first test." Elijah gripped the helm tightly as Nia struggled to keep her footing on the deck. Towering waves loomed like giants, threatening to swallow their tiny vessel whole. "We have to get through this," Elijah roared, his eyes blazing with unshakable resolve. Together they navigated the boat through the treacherous whirlpools, drawing on every ounce of courage and experience they had gained throughout their journey. As the waves crashed violently against the hull, Nia reached for Elijah's hand, locking eyes with him. "Don't forget," she said, "we're not fighting alone. We have the sea's strength beside us." Almost as if responding to her words, the waves seemed to calm, parting to form a narrow passage, leading to tranquil waters ahead. They had passed the first test. Before them, the Sea Queen's palace came into view, shimmering with an ethereal glow from luminous pearls embedded in its walls. Towering spires stretched upward, as if reaching the ocean's surface, intricately carved with depictions of mythical sea creatures. "Breathtaking," Nia whispered, her eyes wide with wonder, but Elijah remained focused. "Stay alert," he cautioned. This place wasn't built to welcome visitors. They entered the grand hall where soft blue light flowed from streams of water cascading down crystalline walls. At the far end of the chamber, the Sea Queen appeared. Her beauty was both regal and dangerous, her eyes reflecting a mix of sorrow and wrath. "Elijah Nia," she spoke, her voice resonating through the chamber. "You have come to break the curse. But first, you must prove yourselves worthy." "The second test," the Sea Queen declared, "is to solve the ancient riddles. Only by finding the answers can you unlock the door to the key that will break the curse." Before them stood a massive wall covered in mysterious symbols, chronicling the ocean's history of wars and betrayals that had led to the curse. Nia stepped forward, her eyes scanning the markings. "This is the ancient language of the sea," she said. "My family studied it. I'll try." Elijah stood beside her, offering support at every step. Together they unraveled the riddles, inching closer to the truth with each solved line. When they deciphered the final puzzle, the wall slid open, revealing a small chest within. "Elijah," Nia said, her voice trembling. "This is the key." When they returned to the grand hall with the chest, the Sea Queen awaited them, her gaze icy. "You have done well," she said. "But one final test remains." She raised her hand, and the chamber transformed into a massive whirlpool. Elijah and Nia were swept into its center, where their most painful memories surfaced before their eyes. Elijah saw himself standing on the shore watching his brother Malik sail into the storm. He wanted to shout, to stop him, but he couldn't. "This is your fault," a voice echoed in his mind. "You did nothing to save him." Nia saw herself reliving the moment her family revealed the curse to her. "You will never escape it," a cold voice sneered. "You are part of it." Elijah and Nia realized they had to confront their fears to pass this test. Elijah grasped Nia's hand, his eyes filled with determination. "We can't change the past," he said, "but we can shape the future." Together they stood firm against the whirlpool, defying the haunting images in their minds. "Sea Queen," Elijah shouted, "we did not come here to beg for forgiveness. We came to prove that we deserve to live free from the chains of the past." The whirlpool subsided. The Sea Queen gazed at them, her eyes softening with an unspoken emotion. "You have passed the final test," she said, her voice gentler. "You have shown that courage and love can overcome any fear." The Sea Queen descended from her throne, approaching them. "The curse is no more," she said. "You have freed not only yourselves but all who have been bound by it." She handed Elijah and Nia a radiant gem, a symbol of the power to command the sea. "Use this gift to protect the ocean and live in harmony with nature," she instructed. As they returned to the surface, sunlight broke through the clouds, illuminating the sea. They knew they had not only saved their family, but had also opened a new chapter for their community. When Elijah and Nia's boat reached the village shore, they were met with an eager and jubilant crowd. The villagers, who had once lived in fear and superstition, now gathered in throngs along the beach, waving and cheering as if welcoming heroes from legend. "Elijah, Nia!" a child shouted, running toward them. In their hands was a garland woven from vibrant blue sea flowers. "You've brought light back to our village." Elijah knelt to accept the garland from the child. He smiled, his eyes shining with hope. "It wasn't just us," he said, his voice echoing like the waves. "Together, we will build a new future." At a grand celebration on the beach that night, all eyes were on Elijah and Nia. Their red hair gleamed in the firelight, no longer a symbol of a curse but a beacon of strength and a profound connection to the ocean. "Elijah, Nia," the village elder said as he approached, his voice warm and steady. "Your hair, once a source of fear and sorrow, is now a symbol of courage and hope. You have shown us that the ocean is not an enemy but a friend to be cherished." Nia smiled, her eyes shimmering with emotion. "We couldn't have done this alone. We had all of you, our family, our community. And now it is our mission to protect the ocean so no generation will have to suffer as we did." In the weeks that followed, Elijah and Nia began teaching the villagers how to live in harmony with the sea. They organized lessons on sustainable fishing, marine conservation, and how to manage waste without polluting the pristine waters. Children learned to love the ocean through stories of mythical creatures and its wondrous mysteries. One evening, Elijah sat by the shore with a group of children. "Did you know," he said, his gaze distant, "the ocean used to be the place I feared the most, but now it's where I feel at peace. Not because the ocean changed, but because I did." A child raised their hand. "Mr. Elijah, can we change too? Can we be as strong as you and Miss Nia?" Elijah laughed heartily. "Of course you can. Strength isn't about size or muscles. It's about the courage in your heart and the love you have for everything around you." Though life in the village had improved, Elijah and Nia both sensed that their journey was far from over. One night, as they stood on the beach, watching the moonlight dance on the waves, Nia spoke. Elijah, do you feel it? Elijah turned to her, his eyes filled with curiosity. What do you mean? I feel something, Nia said, gently touching her red hair. A force from the ocean. It's like it's calling to us. But not in celebration. It feels like a warning. Elijah nodded, unease growing in his chest. Maybe the ocean hasn't revealed all of its secrets yet, and maybe there's a greater danger still waiting. A few days later, Elijah received a strange gift from a stranger. A small wooden box engraved with ancient symbols. Inside was a fragment of an old map leading to a distant part of the sea that no one in the village had ever heard of. Alongside it was a simple note: the truth has never fully surfaced. Elijah showed the map to Nia. What do you think this means? He asked. Nia studied the map, her eyes alight with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. It could be where it all began, or maybe it's where it will all end. The story of Elijah and Nia was not just about courage and forgiveness. It was a lesson in seeking the truth, even when it lay buried beneath the waves. Life is a journey, and sometimes the deepest secrets are the ones that help us grow. What do you think awaits Elijah and Nia in those distant waters? What new truths will they uncover about the ocean and themselves? Join us as the journey continues. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next chapter of the story. Share your thoughts in the comments. What do you think is the truth that the ocean is still hiding? See you in the next chapter of the tale of Elijah, Nia, and the secrets of the sea. If you're African American, don't forget to share this meaningful folklore with your loved ones, family, and friends in the United States to help preserve these cherished stories.